Hello, Brian. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this CloutTrends video interview. Brian, I know you're somewhat new to the platform. Why don't you tell the users what brought you here to DeSo and maybe a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Um, Great. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to kind of share my vision. It's quite interesting how I just kind of stumbled upon this. Kind of the story is I wanted to do something around videos and podcasting and blogging. And I just wanted to start writing was sort of what the thought was, right? So I started getting into building a blog website and got into WordPress. And I've done this for the last 3 or 4 years, just been kind of exploring YouTube and watching YouTube creators and all of the social media sites and kind of trying to find a way to get the confidence to jump into that world, right? Because you watch those YouTube videos and you see those creators and they talk about the monetization factor and kind of the world that they're in. A lot of them push you into thinking, okay, this is simple to do. So about 4 years ago, I bought a camera and stumbled my way through trying to create a video. And I went through that whole game of creating a YouTube video, posting it, and then deleting it, and thought, okay, this is not working for me. So then I started thinking, well, let's just start with blogging. Let's just start with writing. And then I went down, well, where do you start? How do you create a WordPress site? So I went through that whole, okay, let's create a WordPress site and created the blog site and kind of went through that rabbit hole as well. So that's kind of where I was kind of headed. And then I stumbled upon Medium. And that's where Medium kind of got me into creating this personal page and started doing the blog websites and that sort of thing. That, again, sort of led me down this rabbit hole as I've been going through this whole process into finding DeSo just recently. And that kind of perked my interest based on what I was thinking of doing and what I want to do, which is create.
Did you find out about DeSo on Medium or was it somewhere else?
To tell you the truth, I stumbled upon it as I was writing blog posts, and I started following some prominent writers. One of them is, to give a shout out, is Tim Denning. He's an Australian writer.
Mm-hmm.
Love his content, very inspirational, very close to kind of my way of thinking. And so I started reading some of his stuff. He mentioned BitClout as something that he thought was something that he would eventually want to explore more. And that was where I kind of it led me to BitClout. So that's where it started. It was Tim that his article on Medium that led me to BitClout, and I joined in. And just about myself, I come from an IT background. I spent about 20 years in IT, both as an operator at the ground level.
Nice.
And yeah, and then I also worked as a technical services manager and worked into application development. And at a North American level, so I was traveling quite a bit through North America. So that's my IT background has a lot to do with sort of how and where I'm at today. And I got out of that world because I didn't really see at the time much innovation and much change, which is odd because we kind of went into the Web 2 world, and I found the iPhone and that stuff, that technology interesting. But eventually it kind of it just kind of stalled out, right? The iPad didn't really change or evolve. The iPhone didn't really change or evolve. It changed in terms of features, but nothing really evolutionary. And I've sort of just kind of went down, I got out of IT and went into a different field altogether and went into a different investment. And then kind of found my way through that. But I was always looking, my passion, my love is early adopting and IT and technical. And that's where this kind of led me. When I saw this and then started reading the mission statement, I kind of fell in love with the fact that, okay, I don't like the fact that my content, like, where is my content? Do I own it? Where is it going to be published or not published? And, so it's always kind of been a concern of mine going into all these different applications. And when I saw what this sort of mission was and what the technology can do, and then I started playing around with sort of more of the concepts, and even getting interested in how's the node, what's the architecture, how does this framework kind of work? And that once I understood that got me excited even more into, okay, how can we take this a bit further, right?
Well, we definitely need early adopters like yourself that really are looking to these other technologies and saying, hey, where's the order of magnitude change? And then coming over to DeSo and being a contributor. So we're really excited to have you here, as a new user, as fresh eyes, and then wanting to dive into the tech and build a project so soon. So let's talk a little bit about that, because you have this unique background of IT, but then being able to write about it, which I think is very helpful in helping people understand what is the mission, what is your vision, how do you make that come to life? A lot of times projects like that don't come to life because there's not someone, skilled to write about it. And so maybe you can take us through what made you think that you could have a unique contribution to the DeSo ecosystem. And I'm really excited about the project and happy to talk about it here.
Sure. Great. Well, I think where a lot of this came from has to do with sort of my mission to be a content creator with YouTube or Instagram, Facebook, looking at that from a user or creator point of view. And that's kind of where the passion comes from, is okay, I'm looking at this from a user's perspective. If I'm a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old who wants to create pictures with some sort of small some context or something that's written around it, or if I want to blog or if I want to podcast, I just want to easily be able to do that. And I want it curated and I want it put in a spot where I can get at it. And I don't want the technical frustrations, and I don't want to jump from application to application. And I don't want to create user account after user account and just have to build users and relationships through all of those platforms. And I went through that, and I come from, even though I have the IT background and I understand, I've worked with lots and lots of developers. I've worked with lots and lots of technical expertise through mostly through AIX and the IBM platform. So very high level, more mainframe, COBOL. I'm coming from kind of letting myself age a bit, but I come from the era of when I got excited when I bought my first 286 computer. That's where I come from. And the day that my dad came home with the VIC-20, and I plugged that into the television. That's kind of where I come from. And where Netikitt even got born from was I picked up Netscape. I got my 286 computer and I picked up Netscape. And Netscape had this beautiful package where you opened it up and it came with a compass and it came with a book. And it was just, for me, it was just really marketed very, very well. And it really sort of brought this image of sort of the internet and where it could lead. and opportunity. And I was thinking, okay, you know, and I went and started business, and I want to do something. So way back then, I started doing e-commerce with a couple local businesses, and I created a couple websites, and they were excited. They were like, "Oh, we're selling products off the internet," and it's like, "Yeah, this is great, right?" Well, my career started going into sort of more of a North American traveling, and I looked at it and said, "Do I want to work for myself, or do I want to just continue building a career?" And I stayed with the career because I was also building a family. So I thought it was important to be more thoughtful of the family, and where I could, you know, where this business would lead to. So I kind of created at the time that e-commerce business called Netikitt, which at the time was this sort of this fun like network and etiquette kind of framework. And I had built it kind of around you know, a whole bunch of ways of talking about netizen and netiquette, and kind of had a fun play with it. But I ended up sort of shelving it and said, you know what, I'm going to wait until I'm older. Maybe I'll pick this up and I'll learn something about business, and see if I can pick this up later. And here I am, 52. I've run my own business. I've sold my own business. I've worked for a very prominent company, had a successful career. And now I'm just doing process improvement and helping local businesses, you know, where I'm at now. But I've always looked at this and say, okay, somehow I want to come back to IT, and somehow I want to contribute, and I want to bring back my passion. And it's interesting when you work for companies and you start listening to people. And I've met so many amazing people, and I know a person that's a guitarist, and he's a talented guitarist, and I've met two of them, and they're just people that I work with, and they're very talented, but there's no access for them. You know, they have to go on YouTube, they have to go on Twitter, and they're just not interested. One, because their music is theirs, and they don't necessarily, they kind of scared of creating something, and where would it lead? Will it be stolen, or will it lead to something? So instead they've kind of just left it for themselves, which is great. But I kind of look at it and say, well, what if there was access, and what if you could own your content and you could create your content? And that gave me motivation too, with when I looked at this platform, just the fact that if you can have an interface that allows you to do everything that is available to you today, so be it Twitter, Facebook, everything, Discord, and not that you disconnect, but connect yourself with all of those type of applications, right? That's what I think is important. What you're trying to do is you want to build a system that is built for the creator, built for the person that feels safe, that they can share their content, share themselves, just like I'm doing today, and talk about it in a very freeing and safe way, where you can kind of feel like, this is me, this is what I do. I build things, I'm an early adopter, I share my ideas, I'm a team player. And the way I look at this is, if I can inspire the next person to jump onto DeSo, or if I can inspire a developer or someone who wants to build something, it's a win-win for all of us, because it allows all of us to do what we need to do. So,
well, we definitely need better creator tools. No one's been denying that, and kind of waiting for someone to swoop in and do that. So it's really, really good to have someone taking the reins there. You know, you have a great blog post you put out, or write up on the idea, and even Netikitt name itself. You revived this name from a long time ago, and we'll put a link to that post. But maybe tell us about your decision to use not a personal account, but just your one, you know, project account as your main account. We know some people on DeSo, they have their personal account, they have a project account.
yeah.
Did you put some thought into doing that, and then maybe that signals where your focus will be?
Yeah. My intent is to keep Netikitt as my DeSo name and stay with that. I feel that for me, that's the brand, that's the marketing engine. That's sort of where you're going to go anywhere you're going to go. You're going to go there first, which is going to take you to the website. It's going to take you to the application, and to me, it's just the branding name that's important. I've done lots and lots of marketing, and understand, you need to brand. So that's where it came from. Was just putting that out first. I think I may have started with Lauren Bryan, and that is the name that I've been using for my writing. And that was built upon how do I write, and can I, more just kind of not feeling confident enough about putting my own name out there. And there's a story around the Lauren Bryan name, which is, my real name is Bryan Harris. But my mom told me a story of where my father, who had passed away before I was born, they were having a fight around the name Bryan or Lauren. And my mom really loved the name Lauren based on the paintings of Lauren Harris, which I have a painting just beside me of Lauren Harris. And my dad loved the name Bryan, and that was the conflict. And my mom had always told me that of this sort of argument they always had about the birth name. And since he passed away, she sided with Bryan being my first name. But she still always loved the name Lauren. And so that's where I kind of put the two names together and said, okay, I'm going to use that as a writing name, and sort of build sort of my writing around that name. And that was kind of where it started, and that's where I kind of went. But I also looked at when Nader came out, and Diamond Hands, and that was sort of inspirational as well. So I kind of, went, said, he's coming out, and he's a real person, and I'm a real person. And I think it's important that that we are able to sort of show our true selves and show ourselves. And I think that's what's important about decentralized social and social networking. And when you're sharing information, and it needs to come through your contribution, it has to come through your heart, it has to come through you. I think it's, our unique gifts and powers have to come out. I kind of talk about our superpowers in a lot of my writing. And I think everyone is gifted in different ways, and they need to contribute, but we're not always given access, and we're not always given the right controls, the right environments to help us move in that direction. And I think DeSo and I do believe social media had sort of allowed this access. And I think this is the next evolution. And like I said, why I'm sort of jumping on this now is I feel that it's the next industrial revolution in terms of artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, crypto, everything that's kind of come out. This is kind of where the future is headed. One of the things that I sort of geared towards in the Netikitt metaverse, as I call it, and an application suite, is this future hook into jobs. And I feel that the way that we are doing jobs today can be enhanced, where if we're authentic and we're coming out and everyone knows what our true contributions are, then the jobs, you shouldn't be applying for jobs. The job should be just landing into your inbox. And I think artificial intelligence is going to help with that, where they can look at the jobs and your contributions, and that system will be able to sort of match your contribution to teams. And instead of necessarily being part of a project, you'll be part of a task within a project, and task work will be it will just be given to you and you'll be compensated for it. And that's what I call Netikitt 247. And that's where I kind of see, it said artificial intelligence that's working 24/7 for you, looking at what you do every day.
Yeah, so I mean, I want to dive into this a bit because I've always thought the modularization of work, and as you mentioned it, basically tasking is something that's coming to rise and fruition now. Obviously, there's trends like Upwork and Fiverr and like micro projects where someone can freelance on it, but there's also the play to earn space, or the task to earn space, is becoming more prominent. So there's even some projects on DeSo about just learn to earn, or education to earn. And I think this is sort of a subset of that tasking, where it's you complete something that's well suited to your profile, and you get compensated for that, whether that's just getting to learn a platform, whether that's playing a game because it helps understand how to evolve that game. Whatever it is, you're adding value into the system and can be compensated for that on a a more granular scale. I think this is very interesting, and that's one of the things I really liked about reading through your post. Was very thorough and quite long. I wasn't expecting that. A lot of people send me stuff about DeSo, what they're working on, and it's a paragraph or two. So
right.
There's really a lot to break down. We're not going to get to it all because we just have a few minutes left here. But I think what we really want to do is make sure everyone knows that Netikitt is something that's really could be really impactful on the DeSo ecosystem, and maybe talk a little about what you see as its real core value proposition. We talked about creator tools, but this really is a metaverse concept. How do you see that playing out? Maybe you can give the long-term vision and then sort of dial it back to what happens first.
So the concept of metaverse, it goes into your virtual reality and your augmented reality and those spaces. And I've always thought that that concept is quite interesting, taking it right down to the retail level. You look at sort of the Walmarts in the world. Sorry, and I just put a brand out there, but if you look at those types of brands, they're 100,000 square foot buildings. What if we were able to sit at our home, plug into DeSo, do some social content, and then go into a virtual space and actually see the 100,000 square feet without leaving our home, and start picking off the shelf the products we want. And those products are real time, so we know what we're getting is actually there on the shelf, and then it's delivered to your home. So where I see the Netikitt metaverse sort of going is going into a virtual space like that, where you're going to your home site and you're looking at your feeds, and you can have actual conversations like we are today in a virtual space, and have these types of conversations on a stage with thousands and thousands of people watching it, as opposed to posting it and sort of going, what we're doing today, you have to record it, post it, right? And those types of things are available today, but I kind of see this as kind of the future and sort of where it's going. So the reason I called it a metaverse is because I sort of saw this as the future of where we're headed, but where we're taking it back to where we're at today. If you look at my sort of use case, I am a person that wants to create content, and I'm one of 7 billion people that are interested in creating content in some manner, either a podcast or taking a picture, creating a video, taking a video of their dog. They want to create content and capture it. And there's a concept that I call log life. And just real quick, there is a project that was, and I'm not sure of the date, but it was a Dharma project, which had to do with collecting people's data and logging people's lives. And it got scrapped by the US government, and you can look and research that. I did a little bit of research, but what's happened is we're actually doing it on our own with all these social media sites without really knowing what the consequences of our actions are. And I think that's important to note. And when I say log life, my interest in that is the fact that I didn't know my father. And if I would have had access to videos or him giving me some sort of spiritual advice as I sort of go on my journey, I think that would be so helpful, even for your granddaughter, your grandson, being able to pull up content that's yours, that restricted to your family. But I think that's so important. And I think that's what DeSo is doing. It gives you that opportunity to control that content, restrict that content, and making it available to your family, or you sell it to your friends or your fans that want that type of content as well.
Yeah, I think one of the most powerful things here is that data is supposed to exist in perpetuity, and that's the notion of data integrity. And even if you look back on the history, there's posterity as well. I think that's something that's so critical about this is when you put all this effort in and you do all these log-like things, you don't want that to disappear, and then you need portability. Maybe you want to move that to a different experience. That's what's something that's so powerful about DeSo is the portability of your data and your work. You build it once, and then you can in startups it's build it once, sell it many. In business, and then here it's put in the effort once and use it multiple times over. So I think that's something I've been saying a lot, that I don't think a lot of non-startup folks or non-business folks really understand that concept, or even just general users that haven't experienced the friction of trying to rebuild a following from one platform to another and having to essentially go through the whole process again. That's really painful, and it can essentially put you out of earnings for a long period of time. And that's a value proposition of DeSo. I wanted to comment one thing on what you mentioned about the metaverse. I really like that the concept of the virtual space, because I was having a conversation about this earlier with another DeSo user about some things are just better when you do them in a human way, where you actually turn to talk to someone. So, if I'm looking in the virtual space and I want to talk to Bryan, and Bryan's standing over here, you're over here, I can just turn and talk to you. That you can do with a modern operating system. We don't have it yet, but there are some new OSs that are trying to simulate this. But I think the same thing applies for shopping. If it's e-commerce, you physically putting things in and out of the cart is sometimes better. When you set it on the shelf, if you want it back, it's really easy to grab that and put it back in the cart. Right now on an e-commerce site, you remove it, it just sort of disappears. And it's no longer within your grasp. So there's a lot of like human things that are better about the physical space, and we can bring stuff that's not possible in the physical space to the virtual space, like being able to essentially be in two places at once, where you want to pivot from your recording studio to being at the store and do that in just kind of the turn of your head. That's very powerful. So I think bringing all those elements together is what makes the metaverse so interesting. The level of productivity increase that you can see there, and just positive user experience. I think really what it comes down to is user experience is what makes people, what drives adoption, having low friction, good UX. And so really excited you're working on this. Any final thoughts on this? We're gonna have to have you back on, because this is so important. And I think hopefully we get some octane funding to fuel the fire here. Maybe some final thoughts and what you'll be doing on DeSo for the next coming days and weeks.
What I'm working on now is getting the Netikitt.com website, getting that launched. I worked on it last night. It is updated. It's very basic, but it goes and points to everything I just talked about. So it's up there now. Expect some changes to that. So that's something I've been working on, which is more just marketing. A lot of what I've been doing is writing the vision down and making sure it's documented so that it's accessible. And I've got tons and tons of great input, and I appreciate everyone that's contributed their thoughts to it. So the other thing I'm working on is actually getting a node. As of today, I've got a node up and running. So that was very special and sort of spectacular, because it's now sort of, okay, now let's get to the next step, which is where am I gonna take this from here in terms of the technical aspects of a node and the actual infrastructure. So I'm looking at that, and then I'm also looking at the application and breaking up the project into phases. And that's the next phase is now to start working with the development team and start putting the application, at least the first one, to sort of just start it. So I'm looking for support in anybody that's interested in developing into this metaverse, sorry. And I'm also looking for UX designers, people that have front-end experience, that, because what I'm thinking is this is an opportunity that there might be one application that works very well for the metaverse in terms of, say, writing and blogging, but there may be different aspects in terms of how people perceive the interface in terms of how they want to sort of build it. So I sort of believe that there could be 3, 4, or 5 different type of writing platforms. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one Netikitt version. There could be 3, 4, 5 different versions of it in terms of what sort of fits the Netikitt sort of principles. And I guess why I'm looking at it is I just want the applications to be very well integrated. It's very important that if there's a developer or a team that's going to build each of these applications, that it's seamless. And that's important because my younger son wants to blog, and he was diagnosed with ADHD, and jumping in between all of these types of platforms is really hard for him. And he just wants to write. And he had come to me and asked if I could help him with a website. And it's so confusing for someone that wants to do that, who's a young 22-year-old who's not necessarily tech savvy. So it's very important that the user experience is done right. And I want to make sure that it meets everyone's needs, not just one version, but there might be 3, 4, 5 different versions. Could be, because that's what DeSo allows it to. Which is exciting about this is that you can have lots and lots of different ways of doing things, and building sort of the content and the feeds. And that's why I love this platform. Is why I love it. Is just the ability to grow and adopt. So anyways, in terms of looking at where I'm headed with this, yeah, I'm looking at developing it. I'm looking at possibly being a node operator as well, putting the applications up, and getting these applications up and running and through the Netikitt metaverse under the DeSo and the blockchain. And that's where I'm headed. So.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk about it, and we'll put the word out for some engineers and developers and UX folks, because I agree with you 100% on UX. If the experience is not seamless, you won't get adoption, and we definitely need to improve on that, across DeSo. And I agree that the beauty of DeSo is the flexibility, and you can come here and don't have to ask permission to build. You just get started. So really impressive what you've done so far. We'll definitely put out a good word for folks to come work on the project and get an update from you soon.
Awesome. Great.
Thank you so much, Bryan. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.